Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for being here. Mr. Dubowitz. We're trying to execute something that we fought hard here in this committee and ended up with a unanimous approach to this because we realized this was bigger than a partisan issue. It's bigger than the President. It's bigger than any member of this committee or indeed the Senate. This is about the future security of that part of the world, and indeed, I would argue, the entire world, as Prime Minister Netanyahu has said repeatedly. I've personally met with him twice in the first 6 months of this year about this very issue. His concerns are very real, and now that we see the actual document, you know, honestly, Mr. Ambassador, with all due respect, I don't care if Ronald Reagan himself were bringing this deal. I would see the same flaws and benefits as I see right now. So this is not about this is Obama's deal or it's a Bush deal or anything else. I've been very measured in my approach to this. As a business guy and an outsider to the process, I want what's right for America. People back home want us to get this right. Let me read you a couple of quotes. I did this the other day, and I hate to repeat myself, but I think it's so paramount that we remember what's at risk here. This agreement, this is a quote, this agreement will help to achieve a long-standing and vital American objective, an end to the threat of nuclear proliferation on the Korean Peninsula. That was President Clinton in 1994. President Obama, just this year, Iran will never be permitted to develop a nuclear weapon. I'm sorry, I see this deal in the first 10 years. I think the characterization has been said. In the first 10 years, it probably does an adequate job. The sunsets are a real flaw. The enrichment capability is a real flaw. I want to focus on that. But let me remind you of another thing. We talked about inspections. We've really gotten down in the weeds in this deal, and I want to come back to enrichment, but I want to ask a couple of questions, so I'll try to be very brief. Under the agreement, North Korea has agreed to freeze its existing nuclear program and to accept international inspection of all existing facilities. President Obama, the deal is to stop the progress. This deal intends to stop the progress of Iran's nuclear program and roll it back in key areas. You know, if you look at the enrichment presupposition of this deal when we started, it was like we gave up the position and said, okay, we're going to assume that we're going to allow you to continue to enrich, albeit at low levels, albeit with low enrichment percentages, albeit you'll have to mothball your IR-1s. And by the way, in Natanz, they're not dismantling this. They're moving it from one hall to the other. I don't know what breakout time is. I think what the President said, his fear that after years 13, 14, or 15 that the breakout does approach zero, I don't know that either. But I do see that after the sunset year of 10, and certainly 8 and even 5, the stability of that region deteriorates dramatically. We gave them the right early on. We just presumed that we would allow them to enrich from day one in the negotiations, therefore bypassing 18 countries that have civil nuclear programs that are not allowed to enrich. There are 5 countries that have civil nuclear programs and are allowed to enrich under the NPT. There are 9 countries that have the bomb, 5 in NPT, 4 that are not NPT. The countries that are allowed to enrich and have civil nuclear programs are indeed exceptions out of the 180 plus people or countries in the NPT. Those 5 countries are countries like Holland, Germany, Japan, Brazil, Argentina. Now we're taking a bad actor, one of the greatest supporters of terrorism in the world, and we're allowing them to become a member of a very exclusive club that has a civil nuclear program and is allowed to enrich, but does not have the bomb. I just don't see that Iran has earned that right, and we gave that up in the very beginning as a part of the presupposition of this thing. So I'd like to ask both of you, I mean, first of all, is that presupposition right? And you know, can you discuss, and let's start with Mr. Dubowitz, you know, what was the purpose of that early acquiescence of that? And then as we go forward, isn't the real issue here, how do we keep them from enriching, not just during the period of time? I realize we're going to have pretty much control over what they're enriching if we can inspect. Past the sunset time and past 10 years, I don't think that we've eliminated the possibility of Iran becoming a nuclear state. I think we've just delayed that and actually given them an additional path or two to do that. They've given up plutonium in the first few years, or my perception is that they have, but we haven't allowed them or forced them to give up the uranium path. Mr. Dubowitz, would you start?
So, Senator, thank you for the question. I mean, a short answer why we gave it up. We gave it up because the Iranians demanded it. We gave it up at the beginning of the negotiations, not the end of the negotiations. We took our most valuable concession and we gave it up front instead of keeping it till the end. Now, what are the consequences of this? The consequences of this is that by year 15, Iran will be able to engage in unlimited enrichment. Not only 3.67%, not just 20%, they'll be able to engage in 60% enrichment. And they'll use the justification for that they need a nuclear-powered submarine fleet. Not only are they able to stockpile 300 kilograms of low-enriched uranium, they'll be able to stockpile an unlimited amount of enriched uranium at 3.67, at 20, and at 60. So when you talk about a verification and inspection regime of an industrial-sized nuclear program, what you have to imagine is that Iran has scores of enrichment facilities, multiple heavy water reactors, and the enriched uranium, which is at 3.67, 20, and 60, is sitting all around the country, a country that is more than twice the size of Texas. So imagine the verification and inspection regime that has to be put in place at year 15 and 16 and 17 in order to monitor a massive nuclear program with tens and tens of thousands of kilograms of 20 and 60% enriched uranium sitting in Iran. I mean, I think that what happens at that point is that it's not a question of breaking out of their declared facilities. I don't think most experts believe Iran will break out of their declared facilities. It's trying to prevent a covert sneak out when Iran essentially has the ability, right, with tens of thousands of kilograms at 20% and 60%, which is literally a step away from weapons grade, and they've got it dispersed around this huge country. And now we're depending on 150 or 200 IAEA inspectors to inspect that massive stockpile of enriched uranium. And the fact at that point is they will also have advanced centrifuges that are so powerful, you don't need 19,000 to weaponize. You probably need 600. So you need to basically build an enrichment facility, which you're legally allowed to do at year 15, that looks like Fordo with 600 centrifuges buried under a mountain on a Revolutionary Guard base. And then the only Iranian challenge is, how do I get the LEU or the MEU, which is the 60%, to that covert clandestine base, which, by the way, at that point isn't even covert or clandestine because the Iranians have legally been allowed to build it. Now, Ali Heinonen on verification inspection, I think, put it better than anyone to the Financial Services Committee last week where we testified together. He was asked, how good is this verification inspection regime? And Dr. Heinonen said, on declared facilities, Nick is right. The verification inspection, he rated it a 7 or an 8 out of 10. On suspicious sites, he rated it a 5 out of 10. And on detecting where Iran would engage in weaponization activities, on a scale of 1 to 10, he gave it a 0. And so our fundamental problem here is on the two most dangerous parts of this program, suspicious sites and detection of weaponization. The former Deputy General of the IAEA, who's in charge of safeguards, said a 5 and a 0. So my biggest concern is industrial-sized program with that kind of verification inspection regime. We have a tremendously difficult challenge ahead of us.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I am charged with managing my time, and I'm over, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.